Hello. Can everyone hear me? Just give me one of these if you can hear me. Great. Yeah, we're going to get going. I do appreciate the seats being somewhat filled. This is the lunchtime slot. So thank you for parking your ambitious plans to get some lunch and coming to listen to us. So I'm Adam, MD at Reload. And more importantly, we've got Sam Gibbs here, who is head of PR and digital communications at New Era Cap. I hope that you've kind of come to this event and you've gone and looked around, because the interesting thing about this expo is there's lots of different vendors, tech platforms. There are retailers. Now today we're going to be really getting into fashion retail. Unfortunately, New Era, you will know it if you haven't. Don't know where you've been for the last 100 years, because they celebrated their birthday in 2020. I did some stats. So you guys manufacture 350 million caps a year. For anyone that's good at maths, that's more than one a second, which is some crazy numbers. So we're going to talk all about that. And kind of first, I think I want to give Sam a chance to introduce herself and just tell people how come you came to work at New Era.
Thank you, Adam. And thanks for reading the New Era fact sheet there. Impressive stats. So as Adam said, I'm Sam, and I'm the head of PR and digital communications at New Era. And we have a European remit. And I've been at New Era a very long time, over 15 years now, and I'm hugely passionate about the brand. And I cover the PR, digital marketing, all the talent and influencer marketing that we do, and social media. So a lot of exciting activity going on. As Adam rightly said, we are 103 years old now. Many people don't know the name, but probably know our products. And anywhere you've seen a Yankees cap, that's New Era. And we are the official on-field headwear for MLB, official sideline product for NFL, and the official court product for NBA. So we are hugely into our licensed product, but we're also about a brand. And we did start back in 1920 by a German immigrant family called the Cooks, who still own the majority share of New Era to this day. We first started making fashion caps back in the 20s. We then evolved to the 30s, where we sort of started to see a growing trend in baseball caps. So we made our first cap for the Cleveland Indians in 1934. So over the decades, that grew and grew. And then I think it was in the 50s that we actually, our icon product, the 5950, was born in 1954, where I think it would have been the second generation of the Cook family sort of wanted to have more of a uniform look to headwear. So that was born. And then it kind of evolved up to the 80s. And it wasn't until 1996 where the New York filmmaker Spike Lee approached New Era, because at the time we only ever did headwear in sort of team color, and he approached New Era and said, look, I'm going to the World Series, I'm a huge Yankees fan, and I want a cap in red to match my jacket. And we were like, okay, Chris Cook, the company owner, said, I think we could do it. We'll speak to the owner of the Yankees, see what we can do. We honestly thought it would be a one-off, but we made this cap, and it just propelled the brand into this whole new kind of cultural status. And I think it was probably in the 90s where obviously the MTV, seeing all these hip-hop icons on MTV wearing the product, and that's kind of really what propelled the brand into Europe, where people seeing that product out on MTV and wanting to buy those caps for their own. And we've been set up in Europe for just about 20 years now. So lots of exciting stuff that's going on. And over in Europe now, we partner with the likes of Manchester United, AC Milan, Spurs. We also make caps for Saint Laurent. You name it. It's amazing where a baseball cap can get you. But we're also very successful with our apparel lines and accessories too.
So there you go. Has anyone taken notes? There will be a test at the end of New Era. I guess what I'm keen to dig into is so much international growth. So New Era globally is a 1 billion turnover company. What do you think are some of the secrets behind that growth?
I think definitely the strength of our licenses. It's hard to say. I think we are an authentic product, and we always make sure that that's true in everything we do through our brand marketing. We are the authentic headwear. We are market leaders as well in what we do, so we have the majority market share. I think our VP recently said in a sales meeting, everyone wants a bit of our cheese, so we always have to keep hot, we have to keep relevant, we have to be nimble in all we do. But yeah, we are the headwear of choice by many partners, collaborators, athletes, you name it, that people want to work with us, and we always remain true to what we do.
And in terms of kind of that, I guess there's a bit of a switch, being a retailer, being around for sort of 80 years, coming into the time when digital really started to boom. What kind of things were you doing as a company in the early 2000s to kind of capitalize on that?
Well, I guess pre-social media, I think I just sort of alluded to it earlier, but pre-social media, we were worn by lots of icons. So you had the likes of David Beckham was wearing our cap. Like everyone back in those days wanted to wear what their icons were wearing. We had Jay-Z wearing the Yankees cap. Obviously, even he raps about how he made the Yankees cap more famous than the Yankees can. I mean, everyone looked, that kind of gave us that global status. But then social media came around and everyone's media consumption habits changed. So we couldn't just rest on those laurels. We had to start being smart with the way we could to grow our brand internationally. And also it gave us the opportunity to talk directly to the consumers. So we invested heavily, and this is sort of, late 2000s arguably. This is sort of in the past 5-6 years really for us, because we've been largely a wholesale business. So we've always put our energy into our wholesale accounts, the JDs, the Foot Lockers, the Snipes, the Stadiums, but we had to continue to grow our own brand. If we want to get to that billion-dollar status, we have to grow our own DTC brand. So a significant investment went into that went into technology, went into our team resource, the whole customer experience, and really understanding who our customer is. And that's first and foremost on everything we do, because we do appeal to a sports fan. We do appeal to the sort of super fan collector that loves to collect all the 5950s. We have the occasional buyer that's just buying a cap for their kid. So it's understanding who that consumer is and really investing heavily into that. But to complement that is obviously making sure people get to our site, which is where we partner with Reload. So the whole piece with PPC, affiliates, paid social, that's an incredibly important part of our marketing strategy.
Yeah, I didn't ask for that drop in, but for people that don't know, so Reload, you can see us up there. We partner with international brands like New Era. We exclusively work in e-commerce and retail. And typically, we do obviously have execution capability, but we really help with brands that want to know what's next. And a big part of that is that international growth and that multi-market approach. The question I always like to ask, because every business we work with is very different, is how much is your global communication set globally, and then how much can you localize that in each market?
I'd say very little, actually. We always want to show up as one brand. We have our US markets, we have the Far Eastern markets. We'll always show up consistently as one brand, and that's really important. But we have the creative freedom, thankfully, in Europe to market to our own regions. We have the unique challenge of multiple languages, so we have to make sure that our website is localized to each of those regions, and we seek success in that. And obviously that's one of the recent investments, is having localized teams and specialists, language specialists, to help us localize our websites. So we're lucky that the US give us that freedom. They understand that we need to do that to talk directly to our consumer, and we see the rewards of that through our organic traffic, the direct, any sort of interaction through paid social. And I think also doing those localized collaborations. So take AC Milan, for example. That's something we launched earlier this year. That was hugely successful for us on our Italian site. We saw incredible sales, and the Italian market at the moment are absolutely dominating for us. I think that's down to wholesale business probably being limited within that region for what the product that they're looking for, that they can't find anywhere else other than our website. So that's great that we have the right product strategy, but we also make sure through a comms perspective that we're targeting those fans.
Yeah, I think that balance is really key. The mistake that we often find is not having that really strong, consistent global, I guess what we call brand DNA, and then brand code. So brand DNA being that positioning, and then those brand codes being the visual identity of the brand. So that needs to be set at a global level, but then the ability to localize. And so I think an example with yourselves is with that big sports fan base, which those guys they get up into a frenzy when it comes to buying their local team. You really need to tap into that. And so with New Era, we really do play on the fact that in Europe we have the NFL kind of London games that you have, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then in Germany as well. So Germany has a huge NFL following, and it's piggybacking on those kind of seasonal events, and when you know that demand is going to be super high as well. When it comes to, one thing that might interest people is what markets are you actually in Europe, and then how do you enter a market? When a market, maybe people don't know New Era, how do you go about that? So we have our primary markets being the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain.
But when we look at new opportunities, I mean, it's definitely driven by data and demand of product. We obviously have a lot of distributors in different regions as well, so we always listen closely to what the local markets are saying, whether there's demand. Ironically, when we were in South Africa quite a few years ago, before we had distribution there, so much counterfeit product. So again, it's a natural idea that the brand is desired in that area. So, we now have the correct distribution in place, and that's all been tackled. But, it is just listening to the local markets, and obviously hugely what Reload do for us, and obviously with our own insights team, is just seeing where that organic traffic's coming from, where the interest is, and we just make sure we're applying local messages, I guess, to those regions. But it does start with an understanding of the market, having distribution put down. We can't obviously have local offices in every region, in every country, in Europe, but it's then understanding the product needs of those regions, and then we go from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, New Era definitely a case study in how to set up for that multi-market approach, how to have that regional presence. If you don't necessarily have that, I do think just making sure you have an idea of those, say, core mature markets, emerging markets, and then what we typically do is have a rest of world where you're kind of pooling for data. To Sam's point, like, data is so important before you make those decisions. So I think, that is really crucial as well. And I guess in terms of kind of thinking to any inspiration you've had over the last, 10 years, 20 years, like other brands out there that you think they just really nail what they're doing in terms of international?
It's probably an obvious one, but Nike. I mean, what Nike do, I can't help but be so impressed with everything they do. I mean, they have their customer completely at the core of everything they do. And also they have, I think it's around 43% of their revenue comes from DTC. I mean, that's incredible. And that is definitely somewhere we're nowhere near at just yet, but that's something we're working towards. But I just think the way they do it, the way they target those audiences through different sports, but always have the message of being performance product at the core of every message they do. Yeah, I can't fault anything they do. But on a lesser known one, or I say lesser known, it's more of these sort of startup brands we're seeing a lot of, bedroom brands you want to call them, but represent clothing, for example. I think what they do and the way that they market their brand, they're born into a truly digital world. They globally set up, the way that they get their campaigns to be seen on the likes of Hypebeast, Highsnobiety, and I think probably 70% of their revenue is coming from DTC sales. So really impressive. And also those are the types of brands that are willing to take more risks, and I think we all, as more sort of strategic brands and sort of corporate brands, we can take note at times.
Yeah, I think the Nike one, I mean, New Era definitely trying to emulate that in certain ways. Last year we ran and helped New Era run what we call a brand heat campaign. So at the end of last year, the campaign was always on side. I wish we had a video because it's really good, but we don't, unfortunately. But if you can imagine it, we basically wanted to put New Era out there more as its own brand, exactly what Sam was saying in terms of really growing the brand presence of New Era itself, and not just as a manufacturer. But those brand heat campaigns are crucial, aren't they, to just build salience in your key markets. If you try too much just performance marketing, PPC, SEO, it doesn't always work. I guess what I'm keen to do now, we've had a bit of a look back. Let's look ahead and think more about present day. What are the key challenges facing New Era?
Well, I think you summarised it there. Our website is neweracap.eu. I mean, we're more than caps. We sell apparel, we sell accessories, and we've got ambitious targets against our apparel growth. But we have to heavily rely on paid social. And luckily, our paid social stats are smashing it at the moment. But we have to bring new people into our site. We can't constantly target our own people. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is understanding who we are. Trying to think what else there is. I feel like there's lots of challenges.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's heads right now. Where do we start and what do we think about? I know we've had conversations particularly around just the importance of data collection and making sure that's a key theme.
Yeah.
How are you going about that?
Well, I think the introduction of GA4 this year, it's probably put a lot of
Cue a
brands
massive moan from the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's put everyone in a bit of a headspin this year, but thankfully we're all in it together. That has thrown our data off hugely, but we're obviously trying to combat that. But yeah, that has been a big challenge this year, and trying to do sort of year on year, it's very hard to do that. But ultimately we'll get more out of that. But yeah, that has been a bit of a challenge. UK market was always our biggest share. It's struggling this year. I think we all know why. That's sort of just cost of living crisis. the rising cost of CPCs as well. Our wholesale accounts probably are our direct competition, the likes of JD Sports, all doing a great job. Toppers, which is another headwear specialist account, we're competing with our own retailers. So that is a bit of a unique challenge, but there's obviously a number of strategies that we're doing to overcome.
Combining those two things. So firstly, the need to localize, and secondly, the need to understand the data. So one of the things that we use with New Era is we're client benchmarking across the globe, and it basically shows us where CPMs are rising and falling. What I've seen in the last at least 5 years is the need to be so reactive. There's no such thing as now budgeting for the whole year and just sitting your budgets across your channels and markets for the 12 months. We are doing that every single week, making adjustments. So Sam was mentioning Italy. We've really increased the amount of spend that we're putting into that market purely because right now versus the UK, CPMs are a lot better. We're getting more traction in terms of conversion rates. So I think that that reactivity is massive. The other thing with data, GA4, event-based tracking, we could all talk about that to death. I think trying to really improve your first-party data. Obviously, this year you moved over to Klaviyo. How's that gone?
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's, our email revenue was probably just slightly below industry standard historically, but we've done a lot of work. We've obviously changed over to Klaviyo, and that's gone up 150%. But interestingly, we were always below, but our retention rate was really high. Like, we have a very loyal and engaged customer. But for us, as I was saying earlier, having such a wide range of customers that have got all particular interests in our different products, that the beauty of Klaviyo is that you have that automated email flows. We can really target our messaging to those people. We can target the most, the 90-day most engaged people. And it's really, really helped us. Whereas before it might have been a bit of a blanket email to the whole database with 3 times a week. But now we're really targeting people that we know are interested in those products. And for a brand like ours, that's super important, and we're getting phenomenal results. So I couldn't probably speak more highly of that one.
Yeah, gone are the days where personalization was just an email that had your name in it. We're well beyond that now. If you don't know who Klaviyo are, they've put themselves right front and center. I think they want you to know who they are. Go and say hello to those guys if you've got a chance. I also I want to talk a little bit more maybe about predictions for into next year. If you haven't checked, we're less than 100 days to the new year, so mass freak out because this year has gone flying by. What are you thinking for next year? What do you think are the trends you need to keep on top of?
Well, something that we're working on at the moment is a loyalty program, which probably a lot of brands have already, but we don't. But that's something that is really interesting, and our US counterparts have just launched theirs, so we're taking a lot of learnings from that, and I think we're building a sort of reward tiered system, but I think that really helps with your customer retention, so that's a big one for us. The whole introduction of AI and all of that, that's something that we're having to explore. Obviously, it's a big part. I think social media is a big, huge opportunity for us. We continue to plow a lot of investment into that. We have our own TikTok agency now just to make sure we've got content going out 3, 4, 5 times a week to really sort of engage with those people. But as a brand, we've got women's apparel launching early next year. We're actually doing an early launch on our e-com site this side of Christmas. As if we're not busy enough in November with Black Friday and Christmas sale, we're going to chuck in a women's apparel launch. And it also, as Adam said, it's growing our brands. We have to put the New Era flag forward. Like, we can't just be known as the cap of the Yankees, the cap of Man U, the cap of Spurs. It's New Era, and that's what will propel us into that huge growth period.
Yeah, I like how we are playing a little bit of digital buzzword bingo here. Just the comment of AI. There's a lot of talks on AI at the moment. An example of how we've used AI with New Era is a SEO localization project we did last year. Not necessarily to improve the results, but just to improve efficiencies. There is so much you can do now with translations into new markets, whether that is word or even audio, video translations. So if you haven't already, there are ways to sort of scale this kind of stuff, so you're not spending a lot of time on it. I guess, I think the last couple of things, I know we haven't got too long left, more thinking about maybe new markets. What is on the horizon for yourselves at the moment?
I think it's a focus on our emerging markets. I think we're pretty well saturated in our existing markets, but it is looking beyond that. Maybe not so much on e-com specifically, but we have distribution in India. We obviously have the African markets. The Middle East is doing hugely well, but I think it's a real focus there. The Scandi regions as well, huge appetite for our brand over there. So it is that localized messaging that we've really got to work on. But yeah, I think that would be our priorities. And also cracking the UK. We need to do a little bit more there.
I think the UK has got to sort itself out first before it can be cracked. I do think, Sam alluded to it there, but when you're talking about those markets, I think making structural changes to how you approach those. IKEA is such a good case study of how in the noughties it wasn't really doing particularly well as a business. It then made big changes, changed from having a fully Danish team to then hiring people from China, Japan, and those kind of structural changes is what has allowed it now. I think it's 40% of the toy market in China as of today. So really thinking about how can you put people on the ground and kind of make sure that you are localizing based on the structure you kind of put in place. I guess final real thought is, any final takeaway that you would give people today who are thinking about how to grow internationally and build that customer base?
I think it comes back just to understanding your customer. I think that's so important. I think when you understand your customer, you then have the right products, you then have the right targeted messaging. And as long as you inherently know what they want and what they're doing on your sites, I think that is the massive starting point. Like, we've done a number of projects recently where we cross over with the PR team to do kind of localized content with influencers, and we've had it all in local language. And I think that has really helped us with those other, like, more what you'd call emerging markets. I mean, I'm talking Italy, Spain, for us, is seeing that sort of engagement on social and actually having a brand reach out to them in their local language, not just putting over promotional message in front of them, but it's just content that they can engage with, and that has helped us hugely on those localized pages. It's just making sure that you're targeting your message, targeting it to the right consumer, and I think that for us is a big takeaway.
Yeah, so I think in a nutshell, stop listening to us and go and start listening to your customers. We've wrapped up there. We might actually take some questions if anybody does have any. So if you do, pop your hand in the air now, and we'll get a microphone out to you, and we can ask Sam what she thinks. We've got one at the back.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, you've focused so much on localization, but do you just localize by country, so France, the UK, or like, for example, in the UK, would you localize between like customers in London and customers up in Edinburgh, for example?
Generally by country. It is sort of by country. I don't think we really target by cities as such, but it is definitely by country. But then it's also about what they would be buying into as well, like specific products. So it doesn't need to always be by country. It can be by shopping preferences, or by age, by engagement on our database. So there is a number of ways you can sort of dial into that information.
It really is just what a consumer is looking for in terms of product and how does that differ. Very quick example, we work with Emma Bridgewater, so heritage brand, the pottery brand. They work in UK and the US and other markets. You can imagine the UK, so people are searching for biscuit tins. That is the most British term I've ever heard. In America, they're searching for cookie jars. It's very different. So typically, I would say it's not necessarily city. It is more country and just local dialects, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay, before we wrap up, Sam, anyone else today you're excited to see?
There's so much. I think I'm really interested with some of the more startup brands. I think there's a couple of keynote ones coming up. I think the story of Candy Kittens, or Jamie Lang's a good friend of the brand, so be interested to see what he's got to say. But yeah, there's so much good stuff. And there's also someone from La Perla doing their e-com strategy. So how about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think actually the Moonpig one, those guys are the best personalization. The reason why I don't forget my mum's birthday is because of Moonpig, so I have to thank them for that. Okay, we're going to wrap up. If you have any questions or you want to come chat to us, we'll be here for a little bit. But yeah, if not, have a good rest of the day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.